video I'm gonna be showing you guys an issue that I'm having with my RACING F3 EVO board. And I was assembling this quad, and when I have everything almost done, all this wiring which looks like a mess for me makes some sense, I realized that the board only powers up by being connected through USB. If I connect it through USB on my PC, I got it here, USB cable. Now I'm gonna connect it to the PC. You'll be able to check that. Okay, the board lights up, got blinking lights, and so everything's working fine. If I unplug the USB, and I plug a battery through the ESCs. ESC number 1 is feeding the board through motor output number 1. I got negative on the outside, 5 volts on the middle, and signal on the inside. And if I connect it like this, ESCs beep, but the board does not boot up. And I'm not sure if you can see my multimeter, but I guess you can see like that. I'm gonna change it to 20 volts, and if I go here, if I touch on the motor outputs, 1 negative and 1 positive, I got power. See? So my ESC is sending power here. I just don't understand why the board does not boot up. I've seen someone saying that having an SD card installed would fix the issue. Well, I got here an SD card, having it in or pulling it out. I'm gonna pull it out right now actually. It's pretty much the same thing. It never works as it should. And I've tried 3 or 4 different SD cards. I've seen that the SD XC does not work, but I've tried the SD, HC, the SD. I've tried them all, and none of them works. At least, I mean, probably the cards work, but the board doesn't work with that, just by having that plugged. So I got here positive and negative. I got power, but the board does not boot up. Okay, so what I did to be able to solve this problem was, let me zoom in. Jeez. Zoom in, and what I did was I've soldered this wire, this black wire you can see here. I've soldered it from one of the power pins on the motor outputs to the leg of this SMD transistor, which is the same pin that it receives power from the USB. And even closer. So I've searched here for the pin where it receives power from the USB, and I soldered it directly to one of these power pins of the motor outputs. And right now it seems to be working fairly well. If I plug it in, oh sorry, I got it unplugged. Oh, USB, let me zoom out. So USB is not plugged. I'll only plug my battery, and the board boots up and seems to work fairly well. Actually, it seems to work normally. I'm not sure if then any one of the other functions will be messed up. I'll have to configure everything and try it. If I turn it on to the PC, I can put this off and use this here, and it auto connects to my PC. Let me show you. Okay, I move the board around. Everything seems to be working, more or less. I'll give it a try like this. Okay guys, so you've seen the first choice for me to fix the fact that my SPRACING F3 EVO flight controller does not power unless it is connected through USB. Even though my board boots up like this, my FlySky receiver, when I turn on my radio, I'm gonna try and show you guys. I got a lot of stuff here wandering around, but when I plug my radio, it starts beeping. Why? Because, can you see, the signal from my receiver is too weak, so it's like it has no power. Even though the LED is solid red, it has no power. And due to that, I thought, the flight controller hasn't got enough power to feed the receiver, so I'm gonna have to feed the receiver using one of the backs. Now, let me zoom in again. I'm gonna have to feed the receiver using one of the backs coming from one of the ESCs, and I'm gonna run ground and power wires into the VCC channel of my receiver to feed it, because the flight controller by itself hasn't got enough power. And that's what I did. I simply connected the red wire here to feed my receiver, and now, could you get, okay, and now if I turn my radio on, you see that now my receiver has full power. It's okay. Well, one more thing I figured out after this was that now I can disconnect the black wire. I don't need it. And the flight controller remains on with the USB unplugged. It remains on with the USB unplugged, only being powered by my battery. And why is this? Because the power coming from the ESC back goes into the receiver, and then the receiver feeds the board through the PPM connector. So it kinda goes back and feeds the board. And due to that, and as I need power for this, so I'm gonna remove the wire. But for you guys which have this problem, that the flight controller won't power itself only by being connected through the ports here, the motor output ports from one of the backs, these are the two choices. Run a wire from motor output VCC to that USB pin, which is the same as the transistor pin, or simply power your receiver and it will power back your board. Okay, hope this helps. Okay guys, so here's the update on the mini EXA build with the SPRACING F3 flight controller. First, I could not make the board work from my battery. It would only power from USB. Then I figured out that feeding the board through the PPM connector through the receiver, it would power up I did that. I was able to power the board from USB and from the battery. I started to calibrate my accelerometer and my mag just to see if the motors would spin responding to my radio. Something happened. Everything got blocked. I don't know what happened right now. It won't power up from USB anymore. Right now it won't power up from USB anymore. It was a real pain in the ass to calibrate the ESCs. I could never get them all calibrated. I had to unplug this wire because pushing the throttle up on the iNav software would make some of the motors want to spin because back from ESC1 was feeding the board. So that motor would spin, and back from ESC5, which is feeding the receiver, would also spin sometimes. I had to keep the ground on, because otherwise the motors would always be like doing like little movements, like interference. I managed to fix all that, and now the problem I got is it does not power from USB anymore, so the thing got broken again. Now it powers from the battery. I plug in my radio. You see the blinking lights? The blue blinking light? What's happening is that I arm the thing, light comes on. As soon as I push the throttle, I haven't even pushed the throttle. Have you seen? It disarmed again. See? What's... Come on, man. What's wrong with this board? I'm gonna forget about this RACING F3 EVO. I'm gonna set this board aside and consider this board a complete loss. And I'll use an ACE32 here, or something else. Okay. It beeps. I'm gonna arm it, push the throttle. Okay. I got my throttle up, still got my throttle up, but the thing keeps on rebooting and rebooting and rebooting. What's the problem on this thing? I do not know. I only know that this board, building a drone with this to put some material on it, a GoPro, GPS, all that stuff, all that expensive stuff, this will not be reliable for sure. So I'm gonna keep with this build, but I'm not gonna keep with this F3 EVO SP Racing board. I'm gonna set this aside, consider this a loss, and that's it. I've had enough from this board, honestly. That's the worst board I've ever had on my hands. You can't seem to... Oh, this might be a Chinese version, but whatever. I got Chinese versions of CC3D, Chinese versions of NACE32, Chinese versions of KK2, and they all work fine. And this one does not work fine because it's a Chinese version? I don't think so. It doesn't work fine because it's crap. I'm gonna change it. Okay, check the thing. The thing keeps on disarming, and when it rotates, it only rotates 4 motors. I guess this thing, it thinks it's a quad, but I've configured everything to be an EXA. I said save and reboot as an EXA. I have it as an EXA all the way from the beginning. It keeps on rebooting. It keeps on rebooting itself. And let me try and connect to the computer if I can. Oh, it connected to the computer. Okay. Look at the thing. Oh, it's an EXA. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 motors. Okay, it's an EXA. Disconnect from the USB. Sorry, don't point at me, I'm not that pretty. Disconnected from the USB. Radio on. Arm it. Starts blinking, don't know why. Okay, shut it off. Plug power back again. Gonna stop. Arm it. Oh. Okay, armed. It will... See? Did you see that? soon as I've touched the throttle, it just disarmed. Arm it, push the throttle. This thing is not okay. Yeah, forget it. Okay, I think I've managed to repair my board, so I decided to record a bit of a video to show you. And what I did was, you got on the board, you got this transistor here, this one, and that one, that was the one originally in the board. This one, this was the one originally in the board, and I had a feeling that it was the problem, so it stays there next to the USB. See, next to the USB. I've replaced that one with this one, and this one I pulled out of an old motherboard that I had lying around. I got two computer ports I can show you. I always keep this all that. It's tricky. Okay, I got two computer ports that I keep. So from one of these boards I pulled one of these. I've checked with a multimeter and checked that it was working, and so I replaced it, and now, as I'm going to show you, the board works USB and works battery powered. Let me just solder here two wires from my ESC back and I'll show you. Okay, now I'm gonna show you. I got the board here and I've already soldered the wires from my ESC back, and right now I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so that you can see it. I'm gonna plug it through USB. It powers up. See? Green, red on this side. I got here a red one and blue one blinking. Okay. Connected to my interface as an EXA. Alright. Now I'm gonna power it off from the USB disconnected. Leave it here. I'm gonna plug the power on my battery here. And it powers. Right now the board is working properly. So I'm gonna try and assemble the thing everything all over again. Right, and I simply replaced this tiny little transistor, which is the one next to the USB port. This one here next to the USB port. This, the one you got here. Can you see it? That's the one I replaced to fix everything.